Yeah, full burnout, plenty of torque. What a monster. Who knew the Civic Hybrid was actually going to put up a bit of a fight? All right, welcome back. Here in front of me is the 2025 Honda Civic Hybrid in Boost Blue. Kind of contradictory because it has no boost. Honda's dropped the 1.5 liter turbo engine for this model year. They've also dropped the 6-speed manual for the hatchback model, which is the one sitting here behind me. Not only that, this actually makes a lot more torque than the Civic SI. So does that added torque, added power, make up for the fact that you can't get this model in a manual transmission anymore? Is it still fun to drive? Let's find out. Here it is, new Civic Hybrid. We've been waiting for this for a long time. Well, okay, maybe you haven't, but I have, not because I know it's gonna be as exciting to drive or as fun to drive as the manual Civics, but because it's wildly efficient and I just love the idea of never having to plug a hybrid in. I love the idea of never having to interact with the public charging system, at least in today's state of how that system works, especially here in the Pacific Northwest, up here in Canada. It's not the greatest. So when Honda comes out with a hybrid version of the Civic that here gets a combined 49 miles per gallon, or 4.7, I believe, liters per 100 kilometers. I've been getting 4.6. That gets me excited because it tells me Honda's paying attention. And yeah, they have their EVs, they have the Prologue, but if you absolutely don't need a compact crossover, which I figure honestly most of you guys don't actually need, what you need is the hatchback. So here it is. So of course there are different trim levels for the Civic. There's a sedan, there's the hatchback. The hatchback is slightly more expensive. And then for the base models, you can still just get a naturally aspirated inline 4 with a lot less power and torque. But as you move up the trims and say you want leather trimmed surfaces, you want the bigger screen in the inside, which we'll get to, you absolutely have to get the hybrid. So as you go up the chain, Honda forces you into the hybrid, which is not a bad thing because it makes more power, but it's also more efficient. So the hatchback here actually has a lot more space, well, a little bit more space than the sedan. And of course, you can fold down the seats. I would go hatchback. It also looks better, in my opinion, especially in blue. This new model year gets new wheels. These are the Elon wheels, the SpaceX wheels, the rocket wheels. It looks like a bunch of rockets pointing towards the center. This one's also on snow tires here, 235 wide tires all the way around, so plenty of grip. We'll get into the specifics here in a sec. I'll show you guys the engine. Come on, Honda, make it easy. So this has Honda's 2-motor hybrid system, effectively the same system that's in the Accord Hybrid, a car I love. That thing is just great. If you don't need the extra space, extra size, then you can go with the Civic, which is great. So this thing makes 200 horsepower, which is the same as the SI, and 232 pound-feet of torque, which is a lot more than the SI. So we're gonna go for a drive here in a second, but I figured I'd just give you guys the specs. Really good torque, not quite as much, I might note, as the Accord Hybrid. That makes 247 pound-feet, but of course, it's a larger vehicle, more weight, so you kind of have to compensate. This also weighs about 250 pounds heavier than the outgoing model, the non-hybrid model. It's still being made, I shouldn't say outgoing model. The non-hybrid model is about 2,900 pounds. Different front end. They've updated the front end. It's, I don't know, more chiseled, I guess. I like the way the older one looked, the 2024 model, but this is just, it has a couple more edges. The hybrid model gets some body colored trim along, the LED headlights, and a little lip down there that's also body colored. Yeah, great looking car. It's a small car, it's the right size, and they haven't, it looks angrier. I haven't decided yet if I like the way this looks better than the 2024 models. If I'm honest, you guys tell me what you think, but let's go for a drive. Hear that, we're starting off in EV mode. So effectively, like I mentioned, this is a completely hands-off system. You can change the drive modes. We do have, how many drive modes here? 4 drive modes, individual. You can adjust steering weight, throttle response, and then we have normal, sport, and economy. So those effectively changes to the gauge cluster very, very slightly. And then in economy, the throttle pedal just becomes incredibly lazy. So it kind of just helps you get really good fuel economy. But 2-motor e-hybrid system, as you can see right now, the gasoline engine is off and one of the electric motors is powering the front wheels exclusively. So it's operating as an EV. We get really smooth throttle inputs all the time, regardless of how the torque is being sent to the front wheels. Give it more gas. And that eCVT actually will simulate gear shifts without you asking. There's no manual mode. I mean, this hybrid system is incredibly seamless. The throttle pedal is smooth like an EV, especially when you're kind of 0 to 50, 60% throttle in 99% of scenarios. Very smooth. And that hybrid system, series parallel hybrid system, means that, yeah, the electric motor can exclusively power the front wheels. The gasoline engine can power the front wheels in conjunction with the batteries, which is what's happening. Actually, what's happening right now on the power flow meter here is the lockup clutch has engaged and the gasoline engine, because we're cruising at a mid speed, about 40 miles an hour, 60 kilometers an hour, it is directly powering the front wheels. And actually, it is also regenerating power to the battery right now because we're not accelerating. It doesn't need a ton of torque. And gasoline powered cars and gasoline engines are incredibly efficient at mid to high speeds, just cruising. So it kind of takes the strengths of both. It takes the smoothness and the instantaneous torque of an EV and uses that in the throttle engagement, but at highway speeds, it'll use that gas engine to just get really good efficiency. And yeah, the combination just enables a hybrid that you don't have to, like I said, go to charging stations or plug it in ever, which is great. So right now, the gasoline engine is acting as a generator for the electric motor up front. So those are kind of the 3 scenarios. Most of the time, the gasoline engine is acting as a generator when it's sending power. So it's only in those highway scenarios where it actually directly powers the front wheels. But let's do a little acceleration run. 200 horsepower, 232 pound-feet. Let's go. Wow. Not too bad. It is noticeably quicker than a Civic SI. Noticeably. Not as engaging, of course, no manual, but it's just, there is torque everywhere. And yeah, you have to wait just a second. There's a little bit of a delay, ever so slight delay, when you go from, let's say, 60% throttle to 100%. Then yeah, the gas engine has to take a second to be like, oh, okay, we're going, we're making a pass, we better live up to the Civic's name here and that new angry front end and really go for it. And it does. It's smooth. I can't feel the crossover when it goes from EV to a gasoline generator or direct power. It's phenomenal. Yeah, I'm averaging 4.7 liters per 100 kilometers, which is slightly better than the 5 liters per 100 kilometers. And to get 49 miles per gallon, hey guys, that's good enough for me. I don't need an EV. Honestly, the engineering required and the manufacturers are putting in to squeeze the last little bit of efficiency out of internal combustion engines gets me more excited than most EVs. Now, the outliers, Tesla Plaid, Lucid, you know, those EVs, some of the high performers get me excited too, but just this to me is such a good daily. It's so quick. I was not expecting it to be as quick as it is. Let's get into the corners and see how it handles. All right, so I've got it in my individual mode. Steering's in sport, weights up a little bit. Not too heavy. In normal, it's really light. I mean, Civic, it's an easy car to live with. None of that has gone away. So there are paddle shifters on the back of the steering wheel for regen braking. Now, the only scenario you use that is, of course, I'm off the gas, it's regenning, click the paddle, more and more regen, and it'll slow down. My feet are not on the pedals. Will it come to a full stop? I don't think it should, because this isn't an EV. It doesn't have one pedal drive. No, so then it'll just continue to roll. But you have to do that each time. So let's accelerate again. 232 pound-feet, let's go. And then it resets. So you have to do that every time. So I don't particularly use that a whole lot. I just let the car do what it does. And what it does actually really nice is when you're on a hill, it will maintain and effectively engine brake for you. It'll maintain your speed roughly and just engine brake and automatically increase the regen as you're going down a hill. I've experienced this in higher level Mercedes plug-in hybrids and 48-volt mild hybrids, and it works nice here. It's a great implementation here. It just creates a little bit more of a luxury experience. I mean, today, not particularly, but when it was dry out and not as cold, it's just above freezing right now, so I'm kind of taking it easy. The Civic, yeah, you can notice the added weight a little bit, but you really have to be pushing it, and this car doesn't really incentivize you to push it like a manual transmission, even a base manual hatch used to. And most importantly, Honda has not sacrificed zero cargo space or passenger volume to put the hybrid system in this car. So there you go. The only sacrifice is you don't get to row your own gears. Yeah, you guys tell me what you think of the Civic Hybrid. I mean, traction control there. If it's cold enough out, I mean, I've pinned it at about 40 miles an hour, 60 kilometers an hour, full throttle. Traction control comes on from 40 miles an hour in a Civic Hybrid. This was supposed to be dull. It was supposed to not give me really much back as a driver, but it does. The dynamics are still there. It pulls out of corners really quickly. So there have been a few changes in suspension as well to compensate for the weight. So the upper mounts in the front suspension have been made a little bit stiffer, more rigid. Same with the subframe mounts. So a couple tweaks also to the dampers and the spring rates here, just to keep that comfort. I mean, I haven't driven a new Civic in a long time, so it's tough to compare directly, but still very comfortable. Road noise is minimal for a Civic. I mean, there's not a huge gap between this and the Accord. There is a gap, but it's not as big as I would have expected, and it's comfortable. Yeah, you can't toss it around corners quite as aggressively as the non-hybrid model with the manual. The SI and the Civic Type R are still available, so brake feels good. I cannot really feel the changeover from regen to real brakes. There's a lot of confidence, a little bit of body roll, of course, and on snow tires here. Can't push nearly as hard, but for what it is, it's got good feedback. Is the steering gonna blow your mind in terms of feel and feedback? No. Does it have enough though where I can detect understeer just a split second before it happens? Yeah, sure, especially in the right circumstances. It's got that feeling of weight transfer still where I know what the car is doing. It's not going to really get upset. It's not going to do anything I don't expect of it. Smooth, in a word. Let's pull over and talk about the interior. I just recently drove the CX-50 Hybrid, and I compared that to the CR-V Hybrid, and the CX-50 uses Toyota's hybrid system. It is noticeably louder than Honda's system. The same rings true here. This is much closer to the CR-V in terms of just how quiet it is. But here we are. they haven't changed a whole lot. We still have the honeycomb. We've got leather trimmed surfaces for the touring model, which is great. We also have standard heated seats and the sunroof on all Civic models for 2025, which is awesome. And then we've got the heated steering wheel on the touring. And the touring gets a much larger 9-inch display up here versus the standard cars get the 7-inch. So I believe it's all but the touring gets this screen. Honda's forcing you up the trims into the hybrid, but also into the touring. You get wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay with the touring. It's wired with the lower tiers. So yeah, it's a really comfortable place to be. Touring also gets wireless charging and a couple more adjustments on the seats, although no lumbar adjustment at all. The touring also gets a larger gauge cluster. The touring also gets Google built in, which makes this infotainment a lot better than, I mean, 2 years ago using a Honda system it was fine, it worked, it just was not this. I mean, this is as responsive as you could want. It's got, like I mentioned, an Android Auto, really responsive, easy to use. And you can, on the main screen here, adjust your shortcuts. So I've put Android Auto there, but if you hold it, you can change this to include really anything. Maps, news, Honda Link, Alexa, Google Assistant, and Alexa. It's not the same screen as in the Accord. The Accord has a little bit kind of wider of a screen, but they've still kept the volume knob, the physical knob here, which is great. Climate control, physical controls, awesome. No ventilated seats here. Physical buttons on the steering wheel, and the heated steering wheel is all the way around. Bose 12 speaker audio system. Really good system here. It's got like simulated surround sound. It's good. And rear seat room, I'll just do that real quick. Of course, you've got your cup holders here, and you've got 60-40 split seats back here, so those fold all the way down. Honda, cost cutting. Here we go. No pocket behind the driver's seat. No USBs here to note, but we do have heated seats in the rear in the touring, which is awesome. So the Honda Civic Hybrid starts at $35,000 Canadian or 29,000 USD. This one, as tested, the Sport Touring Hatchback, $40,000 Canadian or $33,000 USD. The hatchback, like I mentioned, a little bit more than the sedan. This is one of the best daily drivers on the market today, especially if you don't need a crossover, which I think most of you don't. So that's that. Thanks guys for watching. Civic Hatch, I would fully recommend this. I don't know which I would go for personally between the Accord Hybrid and this. Base for base, hybrid for hybrid, the Accord is about $10,000 more. So if you want that kind of more executive feel, the Accord has a few more features and rides a little bit smoother than the Civic. Thanks guys for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe, give us a like, that really helps. We'll see you soon.